everybody, I'm Kate Cass, and welcome to our edition of Let's Talk About. Today, let's talk about ghosts. Believe it or not, I still have cable. Mainly because I still live with my parents. Because of that, though, I come across a lot of ads for currently running or upcoming shows on network television, which means I was informed early on of CBS's newest addition to their comedy lineup back in 2021, Ghosts. Now, for a lot of us out there more into genre-heavy entertainment that we usually cover on this channel, it's easy to look at sitcoms or network comedies as lesser by comparison. But we all have our favorites, and even this area of TV has not been immune to the golden age of television, even when it's just fun and well made. The promotion didn't look like anything mind-blowing, but it piqued my curiosity enough to give it a try after they were about halfway through the season. However, one thing I was not aware of about the show, though some of you watching might know this, is that Ghosts is an American adaptation of a British TV series of the same name. Yeah, I think anyone who follows the television circuit in the last 20 years or so knows how much of a red flag this can be. Because unless your name begins with the and ends with office, adapting British television series for American audiences tends to yield unsavory results. It's not a hard and fast rule, but it's an easy bet to place money on. They just lose something in translation, a certain trademark wit or a particular casting choice that carried the whole show. So when I see people online say that they just can't get behind the CBS version and claim that the original BBC series is the best and only one, I completely understand. But as a disclaimer, my first experience with Ghosts was the American version, so that's how I'm going to approach talking about the show, just as a show, on its own. So let's dive a bit more into the first season of Ghosts and see how it holds up on this side of the pond. Sam and Jay Arondikar, played by Rose McIver and Utkarsh Amdekar respectively, are shocked when Sam inherits an old family home in upstate New York known as Woodstone Manor. When they make plans to renovate it and start a bed and breakfast, Sam has an accident. The near-death experience gives her the ability to see ghosts, which there are many of in this place. Now the living need to learn how to coexist with the dead, while maybe even growing in the process. Definitely a solid idea for a TV sitcom. Nothing groundbreaking, but could certainly be entertaining and even compelling if done correctly. Ghost, more often than not, does this correctly. Now I will warn you, the first two episodes are pretty paint by numbers, introducing the setting and characters, getting the story going, and Sam being in active denial of what's happening to her until she has no choice but to accept it. A direction you've probably seen in a lot of shows like this, where the main character comes across something supernatural or downright peculiar and is confused or skeptical about it. Thankfully, Ghost lifts the veil of doubt rather quickly, and from that point on, it becomes more of a living situational comedy, where the ghosts have to navigate having living people around their home who can interact with them, and Sam and Jay tackle the obstacles that come with their house being haunted by at least 8 separate ghosts. What I found so endearing about the approach to telling stories in the show is that it feels like a classic gimmicky sitcom, but updated to incorporate the writing conventions of the 21st century. It keeps the good tropes and gets rid of the bad ones. The ghosts, for example, could have just stayed antagonistic, and the stories could have all revolved around them sabotaging Sam and Jay's plans to open the B&B. This is the case with the first few episodes, but as time goes on, they get something out of the luxury of being able to talk to someone among the living, and over time, they get along with Sam perfectly fine, and even respect her insight on their problems. Sam's approach to this whole ordeal is also a welcome update, mainly that she's not a pushover. Once she accepts that this is really happening, right away she barges in and takes charge, reaching out and offering to help the ghost when she can, and when she can't or feels the ghost's actions have gone too far, she will let them know it in no uncertain terms. I like that, taking a situation that could be controlling you or taking over your life and taking control of it yourself. She also gets pretty clever at finding ways to talk to the ghost when other people are around. It doesn't happen right away, but she gets there. But my favorite example of updating the gimmick sitcom formula is Jay. Far too often in shows like this, the main character has a spouse or family who they keep their special gift from as a secret for arbitrary reasons for the sake of creating conflict, or are so annoyed by the hijinks those powers create that their character can basically be boiled down to flustered by shenanigans. Again, Jay starts out this way, but he goes from being skeptical to accepting that Sam is telling the truth and she can talk to ghosts mercifully quickly. So no secrets need to be kept for the sake of, say, Sam trying to make sure her husband husband doesn't think she's crazy or preserving their marriage somehow. But what I love most about Jay's inclusion is that he's not a third wheel. There are a couple episodes where he winds up in that position just by default, but more often than not, Sam and Jay are portrayed as a team. True life partners who have their disagreements, but always do their best to get out of tough situations together. It's honestly so refreshing to see a husband and wife portrayed like that in a show like this, where a spouse can often be seen as an obstacle rather than as a companion. But it gets even better. As the series goes on, Jay forms his own relationship with the ghosts. He may not be able to see or hear them, but they find ways to communicate and become very friendly with him. The biggest step in this direction was perhaps the episode D&D, where Jay discovers that some of the ghosts want to join him for a Dungeons & Dragons game, which is frankly adorable. I love that even though Jay is supportive, they acknowledge and validate that he can feel lonely, especially after moving away from all their friends to a creepy mansion where Sam got a bunch of new pals that Jay cannot see or hear.
So the other night when we were all playing together, I actually felt like I was part of the gang.
See, it turns out the plight of being the one who gets left out of the cool supernatural adventures can be compelling character drama. After that, even when it's something she thinks is really dull and boring like tabletop RPGs, Sam makes a conscious effort to bridge the gap, so to speak. I love that both Sam and Jay have an active involvement in the show, that they can both form their own relationship with the ghosts, and that no matter what happens, they'll get through it together. Again, it is such a breath of fresh air. But we can't exactly talk about a show called Ghosts without talking about the ghosts themselves. Now, as much as I love diving deep into the characters in these reviews, and I could talk for quite a bit about almost all the ghosts here, considering there's a literal room full of them at all times, that would take a while. So instead, we're going to do a quick introduction to the group, and then I'll go into some cherry-pick specifics. There's the oldest ghost on the property, a loud and brash Viking named Thorfinn, played by Devin Chandler Long, the quiet and somewhat jaded Lenape Native American Sasapis, played by Roman Zaragoza, thankfully an actual Native American actor. He is, I checked. A spaced-out hippie girl who goes by Flower, played by Shella Carrasco. A former Wall Street bro who died with no pants on, or underwear for that matter. It stops being distracting after a while. Trevor, played by Asher Grodman. A theatrical and proud jazz singer from the 1920s, Alberta, played by Danielle Pennick. A friendly scout leader, Pete, played by Richie Moriarty. You can probably guess how he died. Hetty, one of Sam's ancestors and the original owner of Woodstone Manor, played by Rebecca Wasaki. And a soldier from the Revolutionary War, Isaac, played by Brandon Scott Jones. So yeah, I'd say we have a good amount of variety here. I do really like the range and time periods this group of ghosts is from. Half of them died in the last 100 years, and the other half are so far apart in centuries, it adds a lot of different perspectives from different times in history to the table. And culture moves so quickly in the 20th and 21st century that even among our more modern ghosts, references to pop culture and especially technology will get a wildly different reaction from every ghost in the room. It can feel like a joke that just keeps building one punchline after the other as you get unique reactions from each ghost. It's so rapid fire sometimes that if one of the comments doesn't make you laugh, you'd only have to wait a second and see if the next one will. It's also pretty cool how expansive the world building behind the ghosts and how they work is. With a premise like this, they could have just had this group be invisible eavesdroppers who can walk through walls but don't fall through the furniture for some reason and call it a day. But there are some proper rules, some things that are unexplained, and some things to just establish the everyday routines of these eternal tenets. For instance, each ghost has a unique ability that's their only way to interact with the living world. Some can mess with the surrounding areas, like flickering the lights and poltergeisting with, it turns out, a huge amount of effort. Some can affect people's senses, like sound and scent, and some can pass through livings, as they call them, and cause strange effects on them. Like when Flower passes through a living, she causes them to... how do I say this? Relax?
I am high as a songbird.
I don't know, I just like when a silly comedy like this takes its world building seriously, and has consistent rules that we learn more about as the show progresses. It lets you know what challenges can be faced in the show, and even what some solutions could be. There's also more being discovered all the time, since even the ghosts don't really understand everything about how this whole being dead thing works. There's no ultimate authority on what they can and can't do. They're just learning it as they go.
I I love it when the mythology gets expanded.
And to shake things up in a show where 80% of your cast can't leave the main location, as Sam and Jay work on restoring the house, more ghosts start popping out of the woodwork. Literally in some of these cases. There's a shed full of redcoats, a girl who was killed on her prom night in the attic, an entire basement filled with people who died of cholera, even Hetty's rich and pompous husband, who apparently suffocated in his safe guarding his money. There's definitely a metaphor somewhere in that last one. So many people died in this house. Not just here either. They don't travel outside the mansion often in season 1, but when they do, Sam sees ghosts every single time. On the street, in their neighbor's house, in an office building. Heck, her mom died in a vaguely 1950s themed restaurant, and she wasn't the only ghost there either. It, really makes you confront the idea that there's a good chance someone has died almost anywhere you've been at some point, but like in a fun way. But they do still dedicate quite a bit of time to exploring the ghosts as characters. We got a big eclectic group here, so there's already plenty of opportunities for stories. The way they characterize the ghosts kind of reminds me of Third Rock from the Sun, in that its main focus is throwing these very detached, very eccentric characters in front of activities or relationships that everyday people can take for granted and seeing how they deal with them. For example, there's an episode where someone comes to the manor claiming to be a historian focusing on Alberta's life. At first, Alberta is ecstatic to see someone studying her life story, but when the guy turns out to be less of an academic and more of an obsessive and creepy fanatic, Alberta starts doubting that she left any sort of impression on the world, even with opportunities afforded to her that her parents didn't have at the turn of the century. In the end, though, it has a nice payoff on how preservation and discovery can occur in different ways. That you could be remembered in whole new ways as long as there's someone out there to tell your story. There's another episode where Pete, the Arrow guy, finds out that through the magic of social media, Sam can get in touch with his wife and arrange it so she can visit the manor. Pete goes through quite the roller coaster of emotions here, from being ecstatic to see the love of his life again, to finding out things he wishes he didn't, making him furious at her, to realizing how precious this one-sided reunion really is. That while his life wasn't perfect, he was loved, and that love still lives on long after he's gone. Just a heads up, this will be the first episode that could cause tears to erupt. I won't say why, but you have been warned. So far, the conflicts and resolutions for the ghosts seem to fall into two categories. For the ghosts who died in the last century or so, it's how they feel there's no hope for resolution to their living days that are still somewhat fresh in their minds. But through Sam's help, they get to see the impact they really left in some truly moving moments. While the ghosts who have been around for a couple of 100 years have accepted they can't change their past and have either buried their regrets deep down, or have been stuck in a state of stubborn dismissal and an unchanging worldview as the world continues to change around them. After all, why change to fit into a world that you can't interact with? Thor and Sass get some moments of closure on lost chances neglected for centuries, and once again, they can be very moving and fulfilling to watch, but so far, I'd say Hetty and Isaac have had the most character development of the older ghosts, and are solid examples of the active effort by the writers to give these characters depth. Hetty starts out as a stuffy, turn-of-the-century, proper woman, which means having as low an opinion on the modern woman as any man of her time would, flaunting her status and superiority, and hating the Irish. They managed not to make Hetty's prejudice as uncomfortable as they could have, but instead as her main source of jokes. The fact that she's so confident while being very out of touch leads to a lot of funny moments. Those moments where you laugh at her, not with her, which is probably what you want for a character like this. As the series goes on, however, those views are challenged, now being put into situations where she has to confront her own damaging worldview and see the benefits of growing as a more accepting and open person in the process. It's honestly really rewarding to watch Hetty's character development over this season. Then there's Isaac, who, given how he's dressed, could have been a funny at first Hamilton reference. Heck, that was the main joke showcased in all the premiere promos.
And a guy dressed like Hamilton.
Hamilton? You talking about Alexander Hamilton? Did that little twerp become famous?
Yes.
But luckily, these jokes are few and far between, which makes them all the funnier when they do pop up. Instead, Isaac became one of the most popular characters on the show, arguably the most popular. That's interesting. I mean, he is an amusing character, just like most of them, but what is it about Isaac that makes so many fans and viewers gravitate to him?
Whoa, check out that body.
Indeed. He'd have made a fine militiaman.
Oh, that's why. Yeah, once it's clear that Isaac is, to borrow a phrase from the cast, a closeted colonial, it was clear he was going to be a fan favorite ghost. And I'm honestly guilty of this myself. It's not the main reason I watched, but the second it was clear that Isaac was gay and hadn't really dealt with that, he became the ghost I was the most invested in, especially considering the time period he lived in, all the possibilities. On top of that, he gets this little will they won't they thing going on with one of the British soldier ghosts on the property.
Oh shit.
So there's a forbidden love angle on top of the fact that Isaac is having so much trouble accepting who he is and his feelings, and it's so great. Also takes the red and blue shippa dynamic to a whole nother level, doesn't it? Anyway, something that a lot of the stories in the show have in common, no matter the episode, is that they revolve around second chances. Being given another chance to learn new things, reevaluate the way you look at the world, see the impact you left on the people around you, or even seizing an opportunity that you might not have been able to in life because times were different. This very large cast is composed of characters encouraging and challenging each other to seize those opportunities. This isn't just where the ghosts are concerned either. This is something that easily applies to Sam and Jay as well, leaving behind their busy city lives to try something new. Something that's going to be very difficult to maintain and comes with many unexpected obstacles, as you might have noticed. The fact that opening this business is putting them on the brink of crippling debt is a frequent obstacle on the show, but it's a risk that has had unexpected rewards. They get the chance to grow closer as a couple and gain a whole bunch of new companions with this gift Sam gains that she never would have otherwise. The stories told around being a ghost can usually be seen as a stepping stone to a great ascension or some kind of purgatorial test or trap. But I kind of like the approach this show takes with the ghosts and their connection to Sam, that it almost becomes an opportunity rather than a punishment. A symbol that life may not go in the direction you expect it to, and you don't know how long you'll have to take a chance. So take those opportunities where you can and make the most of it. Overall, season 1 of Ghosts was, for me at least, a pleasant surprise. A lot of the episodes may have a similar approach and direction for their stories, but as of right now, it is yet to lose its appeal. It's a direction that really works and can warm your heart if it feels compelled to. Believe me, if I wanted to dive into spoilers, this video could have been twice as long. You all know I'm capable of it, but I mainly wanted to make this review to gauge interest. Ghosts has been my big comfort show of 2022, and it has been a very welcoming one. The cast is huge, but diverse, lively, and surprisingly never feels crowded. The stories are funny, creative, and can get emotional at points, more often than you might expect, and it takes a premise that feels like it should be a tired and repetitive watch into something that feels familiar, charming, and arguably innovative. Don't get me wrong though, there are things I don't like about the show. Some episodes are of course better than others. Since the dawn of time, not every episode in a network comedy is going to be a home run. I do enjoy some characters more than others, and there were a couple that just plain got on my nerves. Do me a favor please, and never bring Nancy back again. Every moment with her was grating. She was loud and pushy and obnoxious and mean to the ray of sunshine that is Pete. She was so annoying. Keep her in the basement and stick her in the corner. Thank you. I do understand if some people are annoyed by the show or think the BBC version is better. I can't speak for the show in its entirety, but for the sake of this video, I checked out the first 3 episodes to compare, which some of you might think is not a fair comparison, but in British TV, that's like half a season. There are plot elements and certain ghosts who are sort of carbon copies from the British version. The first 2 episodes are more or less a line-for-line remake, so it can be tough to separate the two in the beginning. And in the end, it's just one of those situations where it's really going to depend on which one you saw first. And as I said in the beginning, for me, that was the American version. From what I've seen of the two, I'd call this the feel-good version. The one where, at the end of the day, no matter what they say or do, everyone loves and cares about each other and just wants them to be the best versions of themselves they can be. And if you've been here for a while, you know I eat that fluff up. If you're looking for something new to watch, where you just want to lay back and enjoy a fun group of characters doing fun and outrageous things, while still getting that quality character writing and humor that you've come to expect from the golden age of television, give this show a try. Also, Paramount, CBS, if you're watching, if we could maybe get a DVD release of season 1, that'd be swell. Please and thank you. But in the meantime, it's time to reveal my... Oh man, this is so hard. Like some other shows I've talked about, a lot of the episodes are consistently really good, but not much is greater than the others yet. I could choose half a dozen on their endings alone, but I'm gonna gauge this one on replay value. And for me, the episode that wins in that respect is episode 10, Possession. Through a set of accidental events, Jay winds up possessed by one of the ghosts, Hetty. What follows is a set of ever-evolving, confusing moments with Jay and Hetty fighting to control one body, and a frantic race to fix this before it gets in the way of yet another step the couple needs to get closer to opening the B&B. And it is glorious. Funny story about this episode. I saw a clip of it on a talk show when the show was only a mild curiosity on my to-watch list. Let me tell you, very few moments will be a better sell than one of the original cast members of Freestyle Love Supreme acting like a 19th century woman, scarfing down Cheetos like she hasn't eaten for a lifetime, because she hasn't eaten for several.
Samantha, Cheetos are divine.
It was the funniest thing, in and out of context. Utkarsh Andekar knocks it out of the park playing both of these roles. The reactions from the rest of the cast are hilarious, and it even sprinkles in some sentiment as we see more of Hetty's growing desire for independence and Jay getting closer to the ghosts. It's a little bit of everything I find enjoyable about the show. Classic setup, fun story, great performances, and well written overall. By the time this video goes up, there's a good chance season 2 will already have started, but as I'm recording this, we've only gotten hints of the possibilities they're exploring in the journeys of our livings and their friendly ghosts. With what little we know of it right now, there's a lot of funny and exciting potential for the show going forward, and I cannot wait to see what season 2 will have to offer. Thanks for watching, everyone. Definitely let me know what you think of the show in the comments below. That's why the series is called Let's Talk About. I want to give a very special thanks to my patrons who help support my content, including David L. Sproul, Sebastian Canino of Cinemageddon Reviews, Chelsea Crandall, Hawk Hero, Jinx Productions, and Wait in the Wings. If you'd like to join these fine people in supporting my content while getting cool exclusive perks, you can check out my Patreon page at the link in the description, as well as my other social media if you'd like to check out any of those. Thank you so much again for watching, and I will see you guys next time.